Hi, Lisa. Great to see you. Hello to all of you who are watching us, who are listening to us, and especially to our English-speaking follower in our community. We said already in our first talk, which was in German, that we decided, Lisa and me, that we will switch our format of the mindfulness talks to a joint project, which is now under the name of Get Mindful. So you can find us on all social media channels, and we also have a website, getmindful.at, and we will also have a newsletter where you can subscribe. So there we will continue with our mindfulness talks. It will be just now in another format, and we will also stick to this one talk in German, the other talk in English. But don't worry, we will always provide you with the most important content of the week. So we will have 2 talks per week, and these 2 talks will have a kind of joint topic. And yesterday we talked in our last Get Mindful talk, in our first one, about what is mindfulness in general. And today's talk we want to use for the topic what means mindfulness on the 3 main levels. And there we are talking about the head, about our minds, about the body, our emotions, and also about the external world and the events in the external world. So Lisa, I would give the word to you. Tell us, what do we need to know about mindfulness in these 3 areas?
Okay, thank you. Mindfulness, I think, again, to really understand mindfulness and to the way we'll be dealing with it and the way it's most helpful for us in our own deepening, is to see mindfulness as waking up. Mindfulness as a way of becoming aware of what's happening. And as you said, becoming aware of what's happening on 3 different levels. To become aware of our thoughts, the thought processes, so the things going on in the mind. To become aware of the body, so that would include the emotions and all the physical sensations that we have in the body. And then to become more aware of what's happening in the external world, so objects, events, and persons around us. And if we can increase our awareness in these 3 areas, then we find that we experience just much more joy and happiness. And that comes from the fact that we simply are better informed. We make better choices. We're less driven. We are less thrown about and victim of our reactive reactive thinking and our reactive behavior patterns. And in our normal life, in our what I call autopilot condition, we fall prey to our mind and what our mind is telling us about what's happening in the body, what's happening outside of us. And this makes us very vulnerable to resistance and to unhappiness and to all sorts of dissatisfaction with life in general. And mindfulness is a way of simply seeing all of that, seeing what's going on inside of us and seeing what's going on outside of us. And this seeing opens up a whole new world of choices.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Because the autopilot is so important for the whole topic of mindfulness, and also the conditioning you just mentioned. So let us speak a little bit about this, what exactly is meant by autopilot. I personally find it interesting to also talk about where does it come from, or this, yeah, what we talk about conditioning from the past, but then also because this is this huge part of unconsciousness, thought and emotions, and also acting, and when we are at the beginning of our journey to mindfulness, this part is so huge of the autopilot. So just to make this clear what we mean with this.
Autopilot is what happens is we are conditioned. We learn, when we talk about conditioning, we're just talking about all the things that we've learned in our life, and when you have, if anybody who's had children or had contact with children, they they grow and change over the years, and they get new beliefs and new ideas, and they learn how to do processes, and it's all very good. Conditioning is a very good thing. We condition, when we get pets, when we get dogs, we teach them to come and to stay, and we make how to take care of their business outside and not inside. And so conditioning and learning is very good. And what happens though is this conditioning and this learning just becomes kind of our world. We don't see beyond it, and we tend to fall into patterns of thought and patterns of behavior, and we never really question them. We don't even notice that we're following these patterns. And the mind, when we perceive something, the mind always has an opinion about that. Mm-hmm. And the mind gives us that opinion, and it's very difficult for us to tell the difference between what we're perceiving and what the mind is telling us about what we're perceiving. And this sounds very, oh, that's easy, but this is very difficult. This is kind of at the heart of what we're talking about, is beginning to tell the difference between what we actually perceive and what the mind tells us what we're perceiving. And the conditioning is kind of what the mind is telling us about what we're perceiving. And mindfulness, the more we talk about mindfulness and leaving this condition of autopilot. And autopilot is sort of when we've turned off all the input channels. And I like talking about these input channels. There are our senses, our hearing and our seeing and our smelling and our tasting and our feeling senses. When we turn those off, we're just kind of running on autopilot. And when we turn them on, when we're in them, when we're in our body, when we are embodied, we see things again. We see things fresh, and we hear things, and we taste things, and we smell things, and we're getting new input in, and we can start to form new thought patterns and new behavioral patterns, and we can start to make choices, and we sort of leave our habitual pattern thinking and our patterned responses to life, and we just start seeing things more clearly. And I think it's also this clearness, this clarity with which we begin to see what's going on inside of us and outside of us, that really makes life much richer and much more enjoyable.
Yeah. And would you say that when we are talking about the autopilot, this is also when we say we are like always running in the hamster wheel, in the Hamsterrad?
Absolutely. Yeah. But we always tend to do the same things again and again and again. And we've all been there. We all know what it's like. Everybody knows what it feels like to get into your car and to drive home from the office and to wake up and you're home and you have no idea how you got there. And it's kind of scary if you think you're somebody, what you can actually, how dangerous this can be. Or you walk into a room and you have no idea why you're there. This is because we're asleep. It's like being asleep. I think many of us know the concept of lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is when you kind of wake up in your dream. You're asleep and you're dreaming, and you're still in the dream, and you wake up and you realize that you're dreaming, and you don't wake up out of the dream. You wake up, you're still in the dream, you're still dreaming, but you know that you're dreaming. And what we're talking about, mindfulness, is not lucid dreaming, it's lucid waking. So it's like waking up in your life, and you know you're living. It's like you're in a situation and you know you're there. You can feel it, you can taste it, you can see it. And it just makes everything so much more vivid and more fun. And you begin to see differences. We start to concentrate more on what's different in this situation and not what's the same. And this helps us really move into new patterns, new, new behavior, new thought. It just makes things a lot more fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And coming back to the 3 levels where we just started. So we said mindfulness is about awakening. It's getting out of the autopilot. And so speaking about the first level, about the mind, the thoughts, how can we there like be mindful, or like what is
Yeah. Well, mindfulness of thought is waking up to the fact that you're thinking, to think and to know that you're thinking, to realize that you've got thought going on. And you've heard it from me before. It's something I love talking about. It's been supposed that about 85% of our thought process is unconscious. It just happens like a little commentator that's sitting on our shoulder and whispering things in our ear. And we don't know what's happening. We're not paying attention to it. There's kind of background noise. And 85% of this is negative. It has to do with, we can discuss this at one point, I'm sure, in one of our talks in more detail. It has to do with our negativity bias. And so, 85% unconscious, dysfunctional thought, and 85% of that probably negative. And this is what's kind of going into us the whole time, and we're not aware of it. So mindfulness of thought is waking up and seeing that. Are you seeing it as a way of perceiving that, to become aware of the fact that you're thinking? Wow.
Well, yeah, exactly. And also what you said, that what we perceive and what we think, or the mind is telling what we perceive, there we are also very much in the thought world.
Oh yes. Oh my goodness, yes. And what we perceive and what we think about what we perceive are often two completely different things. What happens is, as soon as we see something and we form a concept around that, we have to, because we are conceptual beings, we stop perceiving the object or the situation, and we only begin working with the thought that we have about that, the category or the opinion. And so we don't get any new input, and that object can change, that situation can change, but we won't often see that, we won't perceive that, because we're so caught up in what we think about it. And we know what, we think, well, I know that, I've seen that before, I understand that. So we don't even, perceive it anymore. And this is the majority of our life. And so things change, there are differences, and we don't notice them.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. Okay, we let's come to the second level, our body. You already mentioned the input channels. They are key for being mindful, being awakened with our body. So how can we get mindful on our body level?
Yeah. When we talk about mindfulness of body, it's really entering the body. It's feeling the body from the inside. That sounds very complex, but we all sort of know what that's like. At least we did when we were children. And many of us kind of leave the body because the body is associated with discomfort or pain, or we don't like it. We live in a society of people who don't like their bodies very much. And so we don't tend to inhabit the body. But the body is really important, because that's where all the input channels are. That's where we see, where we hear, where we taste, where we smell, and where we feel. And that's where all the emotions, happen. And it's very important that we come in touch with these emotions. So we'll be talking about mindfulness of the body in great detail, because it's really entering the body. It's being in the body to experience what we're experiencing.
Yeah, great.
Like kids, going back to that, embodying our body, feel it from the inside kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And we said also that the body is our not tool, but our connection to our emotions. And it's so interesting when we get into our body and get more awareness of our body, to feel the emotions and to feel in which part of the body certain emotions are typically, and we can increase our own relationship to our body enormously when we use our input channels.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool. Great. And also to tackle the third level, this is like events in the kind of external world. So what do we mean by talking about getting mindful with the external world?
That's kind of it kind of flows through the waking up to the body, because it's being in the body, it's opening up those input channels and seeing things, opening your eyes and really seeing and smelling and hearing, waking up to those perceptions. And this is the connection between the body and the external world. And this also has to do with other people and to other perspectives and to other beings and to events, and to really see things and understand things as they, as they're happening, and become more aware of external events, people, and objects, to hold something and really feel something, or to see something and to really engage with people. This is probably the deepest level. For example, with our children. And to know that we can't always control.
We didn't get the briefing right, I guess. Sorry. So much about what should I say? It's my life. Yeah. Sorry, all these interruptions. We will get better in this.
Yeah, but this is it. Seeing, being just more attentive to what's happening around us, and to really opening those input channels, and to really connecting with the world outside of us through the body. That's kind of what we're talking about. So those three levels, they're all connected, of course.
Yes, yeah, sure.
Look at them.
Yeah, and also being like curious, right? That like curious to explore yourself, but also curious what's happening, and not I'm whatever going every morning to my work and to my office, so I know it will be a day like this and that. But to really explore, okay, what can I discover today, and what's maybe different to yesterday, etc. So also getting kind of in this perspective of a child, where everything is so exciting and new, and yeah.
And that word curiosity is such a potent word for mindfulness, because it is. It's the state of going, wow, this ultimate state of, I wonder, wow, what's going on? So you really become curious as to what's happening out there, what's happening in me, and these two things, to open up to them, because curiosity, the word curiosity automatically sounds open. It presupposes a large degree of openness, and mindfulness is openness. It really is not, it's not closing, it's opening to experience. And that's what we'll be talking about, is how to open and to stay open as much as possible.
Yeah, and then experience the liberation which comes with it.
It's very freeing, because we free ourselves from ourselves. We really free ourselves from our preconceived notions of who we are, what we're feeling, and what's going on around us. And we find that it's just not true. It's these preconceived notions are limiting at best. For the most part, they're just wrong. They're not, they're incomplete. And so if we can open up to that and allow, some things that we were always kind of afraid of, if we can allow ourselves to experience it, we find, it's not what I thought it was. Life really just isn't what we think it is.
Exactly. Okay, I would say that's a perfect phrase to come to an end. That is just not what we expected it is. And let me quickly summarize our talk. So we talked what is mindfulness on the 3 levels of mind, thoughts, body, emotions, and the external world. And we talked about that we are so much conditioned from the past, which is also good for some reasons in this phase, in the past, in these previous situations, but it might be worthwhile to rethink it or re-feel it, or to have a mindful view on it and look if it's still helpful, if it's still functional for you or not, and then to realize these patterns, these thought patterns, these also emotional patterns and also reactive patterns, and then to adapt them if you decide this would be a good reason. And then also we talked about about the external events which just don't stop for this for this talk, but no. Sorry. And we have this autopilot. When we are in the autopilot, we are not conscious about what we think, what we do. And we want to use the tool of mindfulness to minimize our autopilot patterns and to deliberate us, to get free, and to be our own, or to decide our what we want to think, how we want to perceive it, what we want to feel, and also how we want to react on certain things which are happening around us. And you said this, it gives this situation that you wake up in your dream, like lose your dream, and we want to use mindfulness to lose your waking, that we wake up in the reality, and this brings us so much freedom. Perfect. Good. Thank you so much. This was our second talk, and then see you next week. And then we will continue our talks. Let us know when you have any questions regarding this talk. Let us know if you have any topics you would like to have discussed here between the two of us, or when you have any other comments, ideas, feedback, just write us an email or comment us at Instagram, Facebook, wherever you find us. We love to be in contact with you and to talk to you. Thank you, Lisa, so much. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.